Good afternoon. It's 1:08, I guess, or something, 1:07. Apologize for the delay. We're having some internet issues here at the Diamond office. So we're going to do this off a hotspot off Dom's phone. So I hope it works. Hope we stream smoothly here and you get everything that I want you to get today here regarding the new Easy Out Buyer Agency contract. The first thing I want to do about this is answer the question, why does 5-Star feel it needs this new Easy Out Buyer Agency contract? The why, if you will. And let me go back to the middle of the 1990s and explain that 5-Star was one of the first designated agency companies in West Michigan. A designated agency company actually is what we have identified ourselves with and under which we operate as a company, as our company policy states. That is, every agent working with a client must be designated as the one agent who is appointed to work with that one buyer or seller. With a listing contract, it's very clear. We used to have a designated agency addendum that went with the listing contract. With a buyer agency, it's a little bit looser. Let's just say, use that word for now. A couple of things I want to make very, very clear. Checking the box on a disclosure regarding agency relationships does not appoint an agent as the designated agent. Let me repeat that. That state form, disclosure regarding agency relationships, with a lot of small words in it, down at the bottom it says, are you working as a designated agent? Checking that box does not create an agency relationship. That is merely a disclosure of the agency, the type of agency relationship you have with the buyer. So I know there's a common held belief out there that agency disclosure is what creates your position as a designated agent. That's not true. It has never been true. So, without a signed agreement which appoints an agent as a designated agent, there is no designated agent. Right there, at that moment, 5-Star and the agent are in violation of our company policy and Michigan law as it regards designated agency. We've had numerous conversations over the years with our attorney, Gail Anderson, about this issue. And I want to point out, Gail is also the attorney for the Michigan Realtors, and as such has seen numbers of cases where agents and brokers have had to refund a commission to a buyer or a seller because the agent was never appointed via a contract, a buyer's agency contract or a seller's contract, as the designated agent. Now, I know there are a lot of agents out there who like to work on a handshake. I get that. We all get that. And it's kind of a informal relationship where they say, let me show you some homes. I'm going to show you some homes, and if you like working with me, great. We'll work together and find you something. I know that there are a lot of times that disclosure that I mentioned, the disclosure regarding agency relationships, is not presented and signed until a purchase agreement has been written. I can tell you that happened right this morning, a call I received. So I know it happens. It happens a lot. And that is a violation of the agency disclosure law. If you go back to your license training or when the law was passed in 1980, or as well as the revision of 1994, it requires that you disclose your agency position in writing, and that you do so prior to the prospect disclosing any confidential information to you, even their name. So if somebody walks into an open house, you have to disclose your agency relationship, whether it's with the seller or that you have no relationship, and so on. Now, there's a little bit of latitude, but the reality is, and I know this is the reality from looking at the loops, that most agents don't disclose that agency relationship until they are writing an offer. And that right there is a violation of the designated agency policy. I also know that very often agents will not bring the buyer agency contract out and review it with the buyer until they are writing a PA. Again, I had this situation this morning, the phone call, where the agent was reviewing the buyer's agency contract as the agent was writing out a purchase agreement. The courts have held that a buyer's agency contract filled out at the moment that you're filling out documents for a purchase agreement is not going to hold up in court over a long term. So if you think that you're going to slide a 6-month contract in there with all of the documents with a purchase agreement, and then go back to your buyer once they run off and talk to some other agent and buy a house, if you're going to try to enforce that contract, it's a virtually unenforceable contract. So a buyer agency contract, the one that we have in there right now, the 2-page document which stipulates the commission that you're going to get, the $295 that you're going to collect, and that you are the agent designated by 5-Star, appointed by 5-Star to work in that client's behalf. If you have that filled out when you first meet the people and you sit down and have a conversation with them and say, this is how I work, or not, we'll get to that one in a minute, but this is how I work. I have a contract signed and I'm going to disclose to you that that's the manner in which we're going to work, as well as have you sign the 2-page buyer agency contract. That's the way I work. I understand not everybody works that way, and you don't have to now that we have this form. But let's go back a moment to the moment that you meet the potential buyer. It is your obligation as an independent contractor for 5-Star to be appointed as the buyer's designated agent and to disclose to them in writing that you will be acting as their designated agent in their interests. Okay, now, we all know that many of you like the handshake way of doing business. Work with me, I got your back, let's go find some houses to look at. And if you find one you like, I'm happy to work with you and write it up, you know. And if you don't like working with me, that's okay. You can kick me to the curb anytime you want, and I'm all good with that. Great. But again, it doesn't address the issue of designated agency as a company policy and Michigan law. This is the struggle we've had all along, that agents don't want to sign that 2-page document like I do, and I get it, I respect that. But by the same token, we leave ourselves completely open for a lawsuit by allowing ourselves to fall into implied agency. I'll get to that in a moment. So the why about why we created this is that if you don't want to have your agent or your buyer sign a document which you can require that you're compensated for your work, might be the basis for you suing a client or something, if you don't want that, that's fine. What we've done here is try to create something that will work for you. So there's the easy out contract, and I'm going to get to it in a moment. But the reason that it's important is that the moment that you suggest, imply, behave in a manner that a buyer could perceive that you are working in their best interest, you have established what is called implied agency. And implied agency is dangerous because there are two things that have happened. One is you have no contract, you have no document in writing which discloses to that buyer that you are operating under a form of agency. Second thing is that in implied agency, there's a legal concept called imputed knowledge. The imputed knowledge premise says that if I am operating under implied agency, then all 550 other five-star agents are operating under that same imputed knowledge, that every other agent in the company knows as much about my client as I do. And we know that that's ridiculous. I mean, that's just not real. But that's what the law says. So what happens is we find ourselves, let's pretend that under implied agency, when we go out and look at five-star listings, we're now operating under non-disclosed dual agency. In non-disclosed dual agency or non-disclosed dual brokerage, the agent and the broker will virtually every time give up their commission, refund their commission, if it's ever challenged. So you have to avoid implied agency from now on. It's just too risky. So I'm going to go over the highlights of the new purchase agreement here, if I can find it. Sorry, my paper's got a little out of place there. But I want to hit, a couple of the highlights. So the easy out document we have created was announced last week, mailed to you all. I think it was distributed to everyone. It's now on .loop, so you can find it there. But I want to hit a few highlights. In this contract, you have no assurance of getting paid. There's a paragraph in there about commission that says you're willing to accept anything that's offered by a listing agent, that you are going to collect a $295, but that if the listing agent is offering a $500 flat fee, you're fine with that. And if the listing agent and if the buyer wants to terminate you at any time, they have the right to do so. And if you go up to a FSBO and you can't work out a commission, then you're basically not going to get paid. So I want to be very clear that we don't want to find ourselves working under implied agency. It basically drags five-star and everyone else into the high-risk category, because we will be operating as non-disclosed dual agents when you do that. So, bottom line is, having this agreement signed, this new easy out signed, when you start working for someone, is going to protect five-star and its agents from complaints to Lara or lawsuits for your commission. So let me see if I can pull up real quickly the actual contract. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. It's very simple. It says right at the top, easy out buyer agency agreement. And as you'll notice, I highlight the words at the top that say, this agreement may be canceled without penalty at any time by either party by providing written notice to the other party. So your buyer can send you an email and say, hey, it's been a pleasure working. I appreciate you showing me the 36 homes that you did, but we're going to go with someone else. Boom, gone. It gives them the option of doing that. And if that's okay with you, then by all means, use this contract. If it's not okay, I would probably use the other one. The other thing I highlighted here is, well, first of all, there's a designated agency where you are named individually with a supervisory broker of Greg and Paul Carlson, and then your buyer is named in there. And it says the brokerage firm shall be compensated by the seller or the listing broker Buyer acknowledges that neither designated agent nor supervisory broker is acting as an attorney, tax advisor, and so on and so forth. The buyer shall have an agency relationship with only brokerage firm and the designated agency and the supervisory broker named above. I wanted to get to number 2, paragraph 2, where it says that this agreement by either party can be canceled at any time without penalty by providing written notice to the other party. So again, if a buyer sends you an email or text, says, yeah, it's been fun, but we're going to go use a different agent, or we bought a house over the weekend with a different agent, then basically you have no right to a commission, no matter how long you've been showing them houses. The other paragraph that's important is number 9, where it says buyer requests and broker agrees to seek compensation from the seller, the payment of which will satisfy the buyer's compensation obligation under this agreement. This may take the form of accepting the compensation offered by the listing broker. If the seller refuses to pay, the broker and buyer still elects to purchase property, the buyer will only be responsible to pay the administration fee of $295, or whatever yours is, in Section 10. The seller refuses to pay, broker and buyer still selects to purchase the property, purchase the property, the buyer will only be responsible to pay the administration fee. So you get to work for nothing, is what that says. Again, I'm not sure that I would want to be writing up an offer, but you've got 2 options here. You can either work under the easy out contract or the 2-page contract. It's either or. The implied agency situation is just one that we can't continue to abide. So some agents have asked, why in the world would you as a buyer's agent have your buyer sign that contract and basically give them every right to walk away from you and you not get paid? Why in the world would you do that? And the answer is simple. A lot of agents want to work on trust, faith, handshake, whatever you want to call it, and say, you know, if you don't want to work with me, if you want to buy your house from someone else, if you want to knock on a FSBO's door or go up to a builder and work out a deal, that's perfectly fine. More than happy to let you do that. That's great if that's your business model. I respect that. We respect that as a company, but we got to have something that has appointed you, specifically appointed you as a designated agent. And if we don't have that, then you are working under implied agency for a buyer. Any questions, Don? No questions. I hope that's clear. We just can't operate an implied agency. It's just too dangerous. So we need to have either an agency out, easy out, buyer agency contract signed, or the 2-page document. And preferably the 2-page document will be something that you will have signed with buyers prior to writing an offer, and as well as this one. We shouldn't be out there showing houses with no documentation in place, which appoints you as a designated agent, because now you're an implied agency and the company and the agent are operating under non-disclosed dual agency. So I hope that's clear, and a lot of stuff to go through there. I hope we did it. If you have any questions, put them on the page and we'll answer them as we can. And I wish you a great day. We'll see you next week.